everyone, and welcome to the Path 11 podcast. Before we get into our show today, we just wanted to remind you that we have our trailer up of The Path Evolution, the third film that's coming out in June of 2016. And we'd also like to encourage you to sign up for our newsletter. We're going to be offering some special things just to our newsletter participants, and sometimes that is going to be coupons. We're going to be opening up a store soon. We are also going to be offering some free shipping here and there to our international and local people in the United States. So be sure to head on over to the website, path11productions.com or thepathseries.com to sign up for the newsletter to get some extra deals. So today we're going to be speaking with Tina M. Zion, who is a fourth-generation psychic medium specializing in medical intuition and teaching it internationally. She has worked in the mental health field as a registered nurse with a National Board Specialty Certification in Mental Health Nursing from the American Nurses Credentialing Association. Tina is a Gestalt trained counselor graduating from the Indianapolis Gestalt Institute in 1997. Tina received her certification in clinical hypnotherapy from the American Council of Hypnotist Examiners in 1985 and is also certified through the Michael Newton Institute. Tina is the internationally known author of Becoming a Medical Intuitive, the Complete Developmental Course, the Reiki Teacher's Manual, and is a contributing author in Michael Newton's latest book, Memoirs of the Afterlife. We'd like to welcome Tina to our show. Welcome, Tina.
Hello, thank you.
So it was really neat how I found Tina. Actually, I don't even remember quite how, but I remember a portion of it. Through our Path Facebook page, we are a member of a bunch of different groups, and I think I found you through the Albany Lightworkers group, but I noticed that there was this workshop for medical intuition. So I ended up clicking here, clicking there, clicking somewhere else, and then all of a sudden it brings me to this workshop that you were doing in Albany, New York. And I was thinking this year that I really wanted to learn a little bit more about medical intuition because in my own Reiki practice, I would say over the past couple of years, I noticed that I was able to see, quote unquote, inside people's bodies or just kind of know information about some health stuff, but I didn't feel like I knew how to develop it. So that's one of the reasons why I said, well, let me check this out. And I just kind of kept clicking and ended up seeing what the workshop was about and signed up right from there. So it was kind of neat how I found you in a roundabout way.
That is neat.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'd like you to maybe start off with is to let our audience know how you kind of came to this field of medical intuition. And you and I have pretty similar backgrounds. I was an inpatient psychiatric mental health counselor in a hospital, so I found it kind of funny when, you were saying that you were a nurse, but a mental health nurse, and so that was kind of neat. I'm also trained in clinical hypnotherapy as well, and we both do Reiki, so I found myself to be just like really connected to part of your history, but maybe you can walk our audience through how you came from being a nurse in the mental health field to now being a medical intuitive.
Okay. I do like it that we have all those things in common. I need to say that first. But I guess what I would tell you and your listeners is that I grew up in a family where intuition was the most common, most normal, most regular thing to have in our life. And so we would talk about it at family gatherings, who has seen our loved ones who are in spirit, who has seen, someone lately. And so I grew up that way. I grew up with we sending vibes, we call them vibes, sending vibes to each other. And then we'd follow up with a phone call and said, oh, I got your vibe, and so, here I am calling you, and it was always accurate. So I grew up with understanding that it is extremely normal, and I thought it was for everybody. I thought every family had this awareness and this understanding. So I grew up seeing spirits, hearing them, in all kinds of ways like that. And then I got into the mental health field, and I just always realized I had that knowing. And then when I had my first degree of Reiki, I was loving that, just loving it. I could feel the love coming through and that kind of thing. And all of a sudden, one day I was doing Reiki with someone, just volunteering during a women's conference, and I was looking into her lungs. And then the next actual client I had in my office, I was seeing polyps in her colon. And so taking the intuition into a medical intuition place, that's really how it happened. It was spontaneous. It was while I was doing Reiki, and that's really how it got started, at least into that level of medical intuition. But I grew up with intuition being absolutely the most normal thing in the world.
Right. And I remember you saying at the workshop that you thought that Reiki was kind of like a door into some of this work, that you noticed a lot of energy workers will kind of come to medical intuition through Reiki.
Yes. Well, I ended up, after I went through all the degrees of Reiki, I started teaching it. And so I've taught hundreds and hundreds, I don't know how many people taught them Reiki. And they kept coming back to me saying, well, all of a sudden, I'm very intuitive. All of a sudden, I just am understanding, I'm seeing, I'm noticing in a whole deeper way. And so I'm convinced that Reiki and possibly the other disciplines of energy work, possibly they are door openers too, but I know for sure that Reiki is a door opener to sensing the non-physical world.
And how did you come into clinical hypnotherapy to add that to your practice?
Well, I was actually doing that clear back in 1985. So I've been a hypnotherapist, for a long, long time now, and I ended up specializing in past life regressions, and then I spontaneously, or actually the clients spontaneously, would occasionally go into their life in between past lives. So then I got certified through Michael Newton's Institute for life between lives regressions. And so really that's how that developed. I was always fascinated with the tool of hypnosis, and so I was doing it for, regular things like fears and stop smoking and things like that. And then I thought, well, I love past life information, and so people started contacting me about that and was working with that. And then, like I said, it developed into even life between lives, and people would just spontaneously say, well, I don't feel like I'm on the earth plane. I can look down and there's stars underneath my feet, or things like that. And so really that's how the hypnosis started. It's just my fascination with it and how it's a good tool in mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also know, too, that you're a contributing author in one of Michael Newton's latest books, Memoirs of the Afterlife.
Yes. He asked people who were certified through his institute if they'd present a case in writing, because he wanted to do a book that compiled many different cases. And so in Memories of the Afterlife, each chapter is a different writer, because we each have a chapter. But then he actually, in the book, reviews the situation, reviews the case. So he's also a part of Memories of the Afterlife. And so I sent him a case, and the name of the case that I sent him was I Know I'm Going to Hell, because a client came in, sat down, and that's the first thing she said is, I know I'm going to hell, and I need to check that out in a life between life regression. And so that's really, and he accepted that case.
Wow, awesome. Congratulations. Cool.
Yeah, thank you.
So for people who are really new to this concept of medical intuition, and maybe some people might have some fears about that, or, oh, what does that mean? This person can see into my body. Would you like to maybe give a definition or explain what it is that a medical intuitive does?
Okay. An intuitive, actually, in a session that they do for people, they are picking up the prominent things that are in a person's energy field. And so that's really what they pick up. They've become really attuned to non-physical information, and so much information that is literally passed back and forth between people is in a non-physical way and a non-physical level. And so a medical intuitive also does that. They pick up general life information and things like that, but they also pick up medical situations and where our energy is flowing and where it is stagnant, where there is illness and where there is health. And then we also have that ability to go even deeper, I guess past the aura, and go into the physical body to also perceive the energy of different organs or the energy of different sections of our body. And here's what I would like to tell your listeners about this is that a lot of people that come to me are doing it kind of as a last hope, because oftentimes they'll say, well, I've been to every specialist, I've been to many, many doctors, that kind of thing, and they can't find anything. And so the medical intuition actually discovers the story. There's always an eternal story, because we are eternal beings, and we can access so much of that eternal story that has led to a struggle in the physical world or in the physical body. So we're able to access some cause of illness that, MRIs and CAT scans and lab tests and blood draws and that kind of thing doesn't pick up. So we pick up, emotional things, or things in the past life, or traumas that have happened earlier in life. And so I really hope that people would not be afraid of this, because I only do this with permission. And as you know, April, since you've taken the workshop, I really, really talk about that a lot, that this is very, very intimate when we do a session like this for someone. And we have to be so, so respectful that I never, even though I'm able to, I never do this without permission with someone.
Right.
And that's what I teach all the time, too.
Yeah, I have a couple of take-homes from, the workshop, and one of the take-homes, too, was when we were practicing and trying to access information. You were talking about how intuition is information, and it's very factual. It's neutral. It's not an emotion. And I've never really heard it explained that way, but it was so helpful. And because sometimes when you're doing this work, you feel like, and you said that this was a good thing, like, am I making this up? This feels crazy. There's no way. So maybe you could just explain that too, what you mean by intuition being neutral and not an emotion, and the difference between understanding that when you're doing this work.
Ooh, I like that question. How would I say it? I got to think how to describe this. That intuition is simply wisdom or information that permeates the entire world. It permeates the cosmos. It also permeates our physical body, and it is that soul level of wisdom. And so we are not separate from the wisdom that is in the air around us. And wisdom and information is truly neutral. Like a scientist would work on their science project, and they would do it in a neutral way, as an observer, waiting to see the outcome or what happens when you do this or that. And intuition is really another word for the ability to receive information. And so it's not emotional. In fact, one of the ways to tell whether it's your thinking mind or your intuition is that our thinking mind, when we're trying to make a decision or a choice in life or something like that, our thinking mind tends to, oh, yes, we should do it, and, oh, I better not, and, oh, this might be bad, or, oh, it'll probably be good, and it will kind of wing around all over the place, where intuition will be very subtle. It will always say the same thing about an issue or the same thing about a thought. It will not fluctuate. It will not zoom around, yes, no, yes, no. It will always stay consistent about a topic. And so that's how I try to explain that it is very factual, and it is neutral, and it is simply the ability to receive information that is collected in the collective, that is the wisdom or the knowing that we are actually sitting in as we, you and I talk together, and as the listeners listen to this, it's thick in the air all around us. It's part of us.
Yeah, and the other really helpful thing that you explained to the group, and it was funny to see all of our reactions, it was kind of an aha moment for the group, was when you're working with a client, you mentioned when you get there and you connect with their energy, what do?
Mm-hmm.
You just pause and you wait instead of like kind of searching from the third eye and trying to collect all this information. And you could see everyone around just looked at each other, and we all started laughing and kind of shaking our heads. And it was like, oh, really? Just, hang out there and pause. But in using that technique, wow. I mean, that was really helpful too, because that made it so much easier to really distinguish, I think, for me personally, information that maybe I was trying to intellectualize as opposed to that intuitive information coming in.
Yes, correct. It's not about searching for the information when we're accessing the non-physical information of intuition. It's not about working hard to get it. I do most of my private practice now is really mentoring people on a one-to-one, either on the phone or Skype, or mostly those two things, or here in my office, that most of it's mentoring for people to help, for me to help them build their own skills for intuition. And one of the things that people do struggle with, who love intuition and want to do it more and become, very excellent at it, they work real hard at it. And it's not about working hard. It's just a matter of noticing in a different way, I guess is how I would say it.
Yeah, absolutely. And another really helpful thing, too, was you talked a lot about losing your rules. And when you gave us one of the first assignments, and I was one of those people, when we were working on our first person, the first thing I did was I had to touch them, because that's what I'm used to. I'm, doing Reiki, and when people come into me, it's usually hands-on. And I started laughing after you said, oh, interesting, most of you were touching each other. You don't have to touch each other. So that was, and I'm still, from that workshop, looking at and trying to ask myself, what are my rules about healing work? What are my rules about seeing energy, sensing energy? And so maybe you could also explain how you don't need to touch and that you can do this work remotely.
I think people get dependent if they started to receive intuitive information, in a certain way, they tend to think that's the only way. And there's really all kinds of ways to access it. And so, our hands really are one of the routes to really get attuned to picking up that information. So, our hands really are one of the paths, but any intuitive book that you pick up anywhere is going to, they always talk about the clairvoyance, clairaudience, and all this. So there's many, many ways to really access that information. So when you heard that, it sounds like you noticed your rules then, or noticed that you might have had some about your hands and things like that.
Yep.
Sounds like you did.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it was great to, after that, when we were working on some other people, that I didn't touch anybody, I mean, well, and that's part of Reiki too, like you learn the distance healing, and, I'm able to do that with friends and family members and things of that sort. But it was just interesting when I had a physical person in front of me, the first inclination was to, well, let me touch to look inside their body. So that was really fun to not be able to do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to talk a little bit more about, and you gave us the opportunity to connect with a guide that was a specialist. So what are your thoughts on working with guides, spirit guides, and, you had called it that you can call upon an actual specialist to help you with working with people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I talk about this quite a bit in my workshops and also my book, Become a Medical Intuitive, that if we call out to the universe, we have to be very, very specific, because if we're not specific, the universe will respond in a non-specific way. So when we get very, very specific, there is a great little book. It's called Calling on the Heaven, I think is the name of it. And it's about really sending out a request of who you want and what you need, but we need to do it pretty specifically. So just like here on Earth, as above, so below, we have specialists all over the world who, specialize in this and specialize in that. It's kind of like I do. I specialize in medical intuition. Well, there are specialists also in the spirit realm. And some of them have lived in a physical life, and some have not ever been in a life on Earth. And so when we put that call out, we have to realize that we're sending out a vibration out into the air, and then that continues to vibrate beyond the Earth field, and it continues to vibrate out into the universe. So I ask people to really take care of who and what they think of, and especially who and how and what we ask for. And the more specific, the better response the universe can do. So I don't know if that answered your question or your thoughts about it, but you just don't want, I don't want just any old body to jump in and say they can help. I want to really be aware of who's responding to me for whatever, for anything. Now, so we have to take a lot of care with our thoughts.
And do you find that in working with your own specialist guides, do you have the same guide that you've been working with for years, or do you have a variety of different guides that you call upon and work with, and do they change, or what's your experience like?
We have some guides who have been with us from the beginning of our soul's existence, we have some guides that are with us throughout our current life here on Earth. And then we have guides that we can actually call in. I had someone here in my office a couple of days ago, and there was a huge angel. And I said to them, "You've been calling in angels, haven't you?" And she said, "Oh, yes, I have." And I said, "Well, you've got one here very, very present, and very delightful and very loving." And she had been asking, just in a prayer or in a meditation, she'd been asking for just angels to come into her life, and she received a very phenomenal angel. So our thoughts are very, very powerful. And in the workshop, I try to teach that in a very distinct way, and how important it is, I guess.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into, when you're talking about our thoughts are very powerful, some of the, I don't know if assessment would be the right word, but in looking at some of the body parts and the emotions that are connected to them, and some of the maybe thoughts and experiences that we've, had throughout our lives, and how that could possibly manifest within the body. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the body organs and some emotions that might be connected to that, or some good case examples?
Along with our thoughts being very, very powerful in the universe, emotion will empower our thoughts even more. So, joy and happiness empowers a thought. Grief or sadness or shame also empowers a thought in a very heavy, more negative way. And there, like I said a while ago, there's always a story kind of underneath every illness. And much of the story has a very, very emotional component. And usually when it ends up as an illness, it's a more negative emotion. So, for instance, I worked with someone just recently that has a long history of migraines. And I said, your head looks this certain way, is what I told her. And I said, I'm perceiving a lot of anger. And at first she couldn't recognize that she was an angry person, which often is a key thing that people say about, especially about anger. It's hard to recognize that we're angry, but people who tend to have physical problems because of anger, getting locked into our body, they also tend to be the people that feel like they never get angry because they can't look at it, or not aware of it, or can't deal with it, and so it gets shoved down, shoved away. And in this case, hers was manifesting as migraines, that pressure building up in one's head, that kind of thing. So, long story short, that was very, very helpful for her, she said. And so we worked with her anger for, quite a bit of the session.
Now, do you believe that all medical things do relate back to people's stories and their emotions, or could it just be coincidence and bad luck that something happens to a person?
No, my understanding and my sense and in my experience is that nothing is that random. And, a lot of people in the metaphysical realm already realize that there are no accidents, there are no coincidences, because the human being is actually very powerful in running the show and creating their life. and we create our life with our thoughts and with our emotions. And some of it, is meant to be, and we are on a path, but we also have a huge amount of choice as we chug along on our path, and that makes the path either rocky or we can create a smoother path as we, move through this life. So I have, even in prayer, even Greg Braden has become very well known also about the power of prayer. And basically it boils down to, if you are praying to God or Source or whoever you're praying to, the prayer will go from kind of more empty words to power-packed if we are feeling the words as we say them. And so that really enhances, either in a really, really positive way or a very, very negative way, it enhances the power of our thoughts and also our feelings and emotions. So it's all linked together. It's not an either or, it's linked together.
Right.
Everything comes together.
Have you ever, I don't know how often you may follow up with clients that you work with, but has there been any case of, I don't want to say spontaneous healing per se, but maybe you were kind of the last resort, they came to you, they received a reading, they got more information that they could connect maybe what was going on through their story, through their emotions with an illness, and worked on that and healed whatever the condition was?
I've seen it multiple times, like right before my very eyes. In fact, someone's face will change. They will release all this distraught in their life, and they'll look, I'll even tell them, my goodness, you look 10 years younger. Please go look in the mirror before you leave my office, things like that. And I get a lot of emails back from people, because people will always validate your work. And the more you do this, and if there's any other intuitives, listening, you will know that you will always get validation. They will, even right in front of you, I will say, well, you seem like you're very, very low in vitamin D or something. And they'll say, oh, yes, I just had a lab test last week, and I'm very low in it. You're right. So the work will be validated, just time and time and time and time again. And people will get back with you because they're so thrilled that you've been helpful in their lives.
Yeah, and I know that the way that you work, too, is you request to not have any information about the person before your session. So would you like to maybe tell people what a session with you is like and how you work to access this information?
Mm-hmm. It's really hard sometimes to get people to not tell me about, especially their physical condition. But see, it's a mind-body emotion connection. So sometimes people are here because of their emotional distraught, and sometimes they are here for literally physical diagnoses that they have and that kind of thing. So it's hard to get people not to tell you that, but I do. I say, please don't tell me anything, and I just want to check in with your energy field before you tell me anything. And then I ask for permission, so a lot of permission, and all throughout the session I'll ask for permission too. So I will usually tell them my initial impressions for probably sometimes the first, maybe up to 10 minutes. And then I stop and I ask the person, let me know if this doesn't make any sense at all, or let me know if it makes sense. So that I literally say that. And they always say, oh yes, this makes sense, that makes sense. That's exactly where my pain is at. They can't find any reason for my pain, things like that. And so I will say, again, permission a lot. I'll say, well, may I look now more deeply into, your left shoulder or whatever it is. And so again, I'm asking for permission, even though the person, has asked for a session, they have an appointment, they are paying money for it. I still ask for permission to begin and then permission even throughout, because I'm going more and more deep into their story, deep into their, their physical body, literally. And it's like I said, it's a very intimate process. And then I always give homework based on what my guides tell me, based on what I discover going on with them. But the homework is always something for the person themselves to do, because it's important, at least for me, that my clients also know that they are becoming more empowered, that I don't have all the power, that they need to learn. So I guess there's a lot of teaching in my sessions, because I guide them into learning how they are empowered, how they can follow through with their homework assignment. And their homework might be very, very normal, common things like you need to walk, half a mile a day, and your vitamin D is very low. Will you take vitamin D, 1,000 units a day or something like that? And so a lot of times it'll be very, very common, regular, everyday stuff. Sometimes it will be emotionally based things. Sometimes I will give them an energy assignment because my guides are saying they need to fill their heart or their chest with a beautiful neon green or something like that. And so I have them practice in my session so that they'll know how to do it before we end the session. So that's really key in my work, is that the clients realize they have as much and even more power in their own life and in their own body than what I have for them.
Yeah, and can you go ahead?
I just hope that I'm a key element in their healing is what I hope for.
Yeah, and can you explain the difference between kind of sharing this information with the clients and diagnosing?
Mm-hmm. If I was a medical doctor, well, of course they can diagnose, but I'm not. I'm an RN, but I still cannot diagnose. And so I hope you would remember this too, April, in the workshop, that I'm very emphatic about not diagnosing unless you're an MD, but there's a lot of MDs in my workshop now, which I'm thrilled about. But the medical intuitive can describe it. They can describe and describe. They can describe that there's a slow, bulging, energetic area, in their intestines. That there are, let's say in their colon, there's red, inflamed-looking lines when you know that they have irritable bowel syndrome. As long as you don't use a diagnostic label on the person, you're okay, as long as you shift it into describing. And so instead of saying, you have diabetes, I would say, I feel like there's a lot of sugar in your system because I have a sweet, sticky taste in my mouth, something like that. So we can describe, but not diagnose.
Yes, and I did remember that, which is why I wanted to just ask the question for our listeners too, in case they were wondering, like, whoa, hold on a second, what's the difference here between the two?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And I know we're kind of getting close to the end of our time here, but one of the other things that I wanted to ask about was, in your sessions, you said it was important to bring your energy back after working with somebody. And you gave us a tool or a metaphor to be able to do that in the workshop. Or we created one for ourselves when you brought us through a meditation. And so do you offer that tool to students? Because as humans, using metaphors and picturing things is very helpful to be able to imagine bringing your energy back and kind of disconnecting from the person that you're working with. Or what if, like, sometimes I'm trying to figure out what the best way is to ask this question. Like, I've heard some people say, but I don't have a belief in that. I don't believe that I carry anybody's energy, so I may not need to imagine myself coming back to myself and, processing through something in order to disconnect. I just believe that I go there and then I come back, and I'm not taking anything with me.
So your question is, what do I do if I have somebody that doesn't believe in that? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Or, I mean, how important do you feel it is for people to have that process in kind of pulling your energy back from clients that you work with? Or do you just offer that as a suggestion for people to be able to see that cord of energy coming back to themselves? And how important is it, I guess?
Well, again, I don't lug around any responsibility for people who come to my workshops or even my own clients, but boy, I'm right there with everybody 100% and more. But at the end of a session, I would ask that you really, because again, our thoughts are very powerful and energy follows thought. So I do ask people to release the person they've just worked with and come back, in ways that I get into in depth in the workshop. But, so all I can do is offer that, and it's up to the client to do their homework. It's up to the student in my workshop to try it. And some of the people that have the hardest time in the workshop are professional psychics, professional intuitives, because they have a certain pattern that they've been doing for years. And so all I can do is ask them to recognize the pattern that they've been working with for a long time, and then try something new. Try my way and see what you notice. It's kind of like people who work hard to become intuitive, and I ask them just pause and notice. Well, we can't make anybody do these things, nor should we, but it's just a request for them to allow a different way. It's kind of like back to you saying you thought you had to put your hands on someone to do this work. Well, I used to think that too. So it's just asking people to notice and try a different way. And I used to get very intimidated when I would have professional intuitives come to my workshops, and from all over the world, because I teach all over the place now. And I used to be intimidated by that, because some of them have been intuitives full time for 25, 30 years. But they are the people who come up and say, "Oh my goodness, this has really, really been helpful," or "I never thought to do it this way," or something like that. But again, it's up to everybody to do what feels right to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if somebody would like to book a session with you, I know that you do it online. You can do it through Skype or personally in your office, but would you like to let our audience know how they can do that?
Yeah, I don't do any sessions through email, although I know that some people are getting into that. But I do on the phone or on Skype or here in my office. And they would need to call my office. And you want me to give the number?
Sure,
is that what you're asking? Yeah, okay. My office number is 260-490-1180. So 260-490-1180. And or you can actually email me and ask for a session, and then my office will get back with you. And my email is my initials, TZ for Tina Zion, so it's TZ@Hughes, HUGHES.net. And then my website is livingawareinc.com.
Awesome. And I think you were saying at the workshop that your book came after the workshop. Is that correct? You kind of created the workshop and then you... Yeah.
And then I wrote the book because, first of all, I thought, as I studied myself, and I thought, how on earth am I getting so accurate? I was amazing myself because of the validation that I would be wowed out. Oh my goodness, how did I get that so right? So I started studying myself, and then I studied myself, 6, 7, 8 months, and took notes and things like that. And then I thought, well, I want to teach this because my goal is to really integrate medical intuition with Western medicine. It's not an either or. It truly is an integration in my hope. And now that I'm teaching it internationally, I'm even happier because I do see a day where this is going to be more integrated. I am seeing already that medical doctors, nurses, physical therapists are coming to my workshop. So I know it's happening, and that's my joy and love. But to finish with your question, I studied myself, started the workshops, and I thought, well, this would make a good book, and I could access and touch more people's lives with the book. And now I'm working on a next book of an advanced medical intuition. So I'm working quite diligently right now on it.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, and, people can head on over to Tina's website and actually check out her calendar. You can see all the different places where she's going to be offering her workshops. And then people can also request to book you for a workshop if they wanted to bring you to.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, because that is how it happens, is that someone in a country or a different state will contact me and say they would like for me to come. And I will say, well, if you host me and help promote it, then I will certainly be there. And that's how, April, you and I got together, too, that I had a host there in New York, and it was a wonderful group, actually.
Yeah, and I'm on your website right now. It looks like you're coming back to New York in Lilydale, which I've never been there, but that's pretty close to where I am. October 1st of 2016, so maybe I'll see you again.
That'd be great. Some people do take the workshop twice, and they say they get even more, so that's thrilling, too. That's very nice.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Tina, and I really do highly recommend for anyone that's interested in this work to really get out to one of Tina's workshops, book a session. I just really enjoyed just being in your presence, to be honest. You have very nice energy, and you just seem like a very legit, down-to-earth person, and I love meeting people like that in the field, and you really just seem to make everybody feel really comfortable, and I also felt very empowered and, just trying to take ownership in this field of what we do and kind of knowing our power and our gifts that we're trying to put out there. So it was just an amazing workshop for me. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to interview you and talk to you again.
Oh, April, that's so kind of you. Thank you so very, very much. That makes, all my work worthwhile to hear those words, from you. So thank you very, very much.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Tina.
All righty.
Okay. Have a great day.
Okay. Bye-bye.
If you'd like more information about our films or to purchase our DVDs, you can head on over to our website at thepastseries.com. They're also available to purchase on Amazon.com.
Our films are also streaming online at Vimeo.com, GaiamTV.com, and iTunes.
If you have a show suggestion or would like us to interview someone specifically, please feel free to shoot us an email at info@thepastseries.com or send us a tweet at thepastseries.
Please rate and review us in iTunes and subscribe.
We hope you enjoyed the show.